Stand by. Can we have a bit of silence and I can hit the go button? Okay. Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk number 260. This is live, this is our post-Messe debrief. We sort of have, it's a regular thing, well every year anyway, so this year obviously we came back from Messe on Friday, back late Friday night, and had 3 days over there, which was jolly good fun. Actually got quite a lot of video stuff, hope you managed to catch something. You'll also be noticing perhaps I've got a Jupiter 80 in the background here, because there was a version 2 software release, and there was a Jupiter 50 and stuff, so hopefully we'll have a bit more of a look at those. But anyway, I want to welcome all my lovely guests. We'll start over there with Rich Hilton, because he's there live in Skype land with what looks like a guitar around his neck. How are you, Rich?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy. I got a new guitar this week, and it's my new toy, and I'm having so much fun with it.
That's great. New guitar. It's funny, we've had this Yamaha THR in the studio for a little while, and that is a similar kind of thing. It's very, very, very playable and really quite quiet at the same time, but you can get so many tones out of it. And I've got an old Burns 1960s guitar, which just sounds awesome through it. And I mean, my fingers are starting to get a bit blistery where I just keep picking up every once in a while and playing, but I can't play as well as you by the sound of it. So I won't be doing that on camera, that's for sure. So, well, Rich, how the devil are you? You're back, and you got your amp, and did you enjoy any of the Messe coverage?
I enjoyed probably almost all of it. I've been watching it diligently.
Super.
There
was quite a lot there. It was on the surface, it didn't seem like there was very much new stuff, but in fact we managed to eke out quite a lot of useful things. So I think actually, on reflection, that's not the case at all. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to go to, let's see, we'll go to PJ. PJ Tracy is over there in Minneapolis. He's been ousted from his studio and is joining us on the iPad but he can't get his camera working because we can't do conference calls. So we're once again thwarted PJ's for PJ Visual. But there you are, PJ. PJTracySound.com. How are you, PJ?
I'm great. Yeah, I couldn't be better, other than not being able to get this camera to work in this conference call. But yeah, we've been taking delivery of some new gear this week, and tomorrow we're anticipating today the imminent arrival of a Chandler Zener limiter, which I am kind of the culmination of a dream to have one of those in my rack. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to it.
What's so special, forgive my ignorance, about a Chandler Zener limiter?
Well, the Zener limiter is a note-for-note copy with some additions to make it a little more versatile of the limiter that appeared in the original TGI desks that were at EMI studios in the late 60s and early 70s.
Right.
So the limiter that was used to record Abbey Road, Dark Side of the Moon, those kinds of records, and appeared in the mastering desk at Abbey Road throughout the 70s. So it has a very specific sound to it. And Wade Geck at Chandler, he has sort of added a lot of versatility to the Zener, because he originally released the TG1, which is the exact copy of that limiter, and then the Zener is an updated version of it, where there's extended attack and release times, a different compression mode which changes the sidechain curve, and adds a filter in the sidechain so that you're able to filter out low frequency response.
Well, we look forward to hearing that. Maybe you can run yourself through it at the next podcast, and we can hear what it sounds like on solo voice. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us, PJ. Thank you very much. Right, who are we going to go to next? Let's see. It's a lottery here. We're going to go hello to, let's say, Mark Tinley. How's Mark Tinley there? Mark Tinley over there in, is it Oxfordshire? I always get it wrong.
I'm not in Oxfordshire.
Cambridgeshire.
No, I'm not there either.
Oh.
I'm in Bedfordshire now.
Bedfordshire. I
I'm
knew
very
it was
well,
somewhere
actually.
over there.
I'm very well, apart from sporting a 40-inch waistline and having a mind full of hitherto hidden and undeclared commitments that my character has been playing out behind my back to sabotage my life.
Wow, that sounds a little bit hard to comprehend for me at the moment.
Well, I've been on a course in London on Wednesdays, but this week's at Tuesday, so it was on Tuesday, so I'm here instead, which is brilliant because I like being here.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to have you. Likebeing.com, Mr. Tinley right there. So, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll go over to Dave Spiers there over on GeForce Software. Dave Spiers, of course, is Mr. Smug because he knew all about one of our first topics. Dave Spiers there, GeForceSoftware.com. I believe might have something to do with a certain topic that we're going to open with. Is
Possibly.
that correct? Possibly. Right. Well, let me just open the play on that, and then we can take it from there, eh? So let's go straight in with our first topic.
Hi there, everybody. How you doing? Good. You okay? What is rack extensions? Rack extensions is a technology that allows third parties to create and design, but not only that, but also to distribute and sell devices for the Reason rack. We're going to talk about all those points. So maybe you're thinking, what the hell? Come on, Propellerhead plugins have been available for 200 years now. You didn't invent this. And you're absolutely right if you're thinking that. We did not invent that. But we did have a chance to take a step back and look at plugin technology. And when we did that, we saw a lot of things that we really, really liked.
That was Ernst Nath Boothhorst. I think I pronounced it right. I probably haven't, and I'm terribly sorry. CEO of Propellerheads on the eve of Musik Messe. We dashed from the airport to be present at that particular press conference where I piped up and actually asked a question. I put my head above the parapet. I can't remember what it was now. It's all a blur. But we got a couple of interviews there. But basically, this is the sort of the big news from Propellerheads. Amongst the other things, certainly the rack extensions. And I know that Dave was mentioned in one of the GeForce logo was there in the kind of forthcoming plugins for the rack extensions thing. So is there anything else you can tell us about that, or is that under wraps, Dave?
What, with regards what we're doing?
Well, anything really. What, when, how, what's it like?
I can tell you kind of how it happened, which was amazing. In fact, they're coming here. They're sending somebody here tomorrow, which is why I've had a tidy up in the studio to do some filming. And yes, that's going to be pretty interesting. They contacted us a while ago. I'm not sure how much I can say, but I think what I can say is they contacted us a while ago. They came to see us and they put the idea to us, and I've always been a huge fan of theirs. In fact, there's a weird connection to kind of how I started in the industry, which involved Propellerheads and Steinberg and stuff. Back at the time when Steinberg distributed Propellerheads Rebirth, which was pretty massive. And yeah, we talked about things, and obviously we explained that, resources, we're always being asked, can you do something for this platform? Can you do something for that? And as you know, we're a kind of minuscule operation, so it's always really difficult. But after talking with them, we came up with a solution, and that's kind of what we've been on for the last, blimey, at least a couple of months. So yeah, we're hoping that the minute it's released, the rack extension update's released, we will have at least one, probably two things on it.
Really? I mean, can you say anything about it in terms of, I'm guessing instrument we're talking really, but just presumably because that's what you make. You don't make effects processors, so yeah, I'm guessing it must be sort of instrument based. And one of the things that was obviously quite challenging, I mean, they're bandying about all sorts of claims like it only takes 2 hours to compile the code, which may well be the case. And I'm guessing if you have a rack based GUI, then that's all great. And you can just, you don't have to completely redesign the GUI. Whereas I imagine for you, that's probably quite a lot of work.
It's the biggest challenge, I think. Well, yeah, Chris is actually working on that today and sent me through a couple of initial ideas that he's done. We had a kind of mock-up, actually, what we are going to release is working within the Reason Rack already. It's literally the kind of graphic interface that requires a huge amount of thought to kind of make it, we really want to make it sit within the Reason Rack without kind of standing out too much and being too much in your face. It's got to be right.
So essentially, it's like Roland releasing a rack mount version of of their keyboards. Effectively, you've got to release a rack mount version of your soft synths in a sort of as a paradigm.
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, the way they've done it is brilliant because, we're at this kind of juncture where supporting yet another platform. I mean, we had this whole discussion over AAX and all that kind of stuff. All of these things kind of add up to resources, and rather than keep releasing, new instruments and new formats and stuff, the one thing you really do have to do as a small company, and probably as a large company as well, is marry your support with the amount of instruments you've got out there. Whereas the way they've kind of geared everything up, it's actually a really elegant solution for us. So I was really honoured, actually, and it's really funny because some people always put us in this category of, oh, you're rivals of this company and that company, and we never started with any funding. We started with a debt, and when that I saw a still where Ernst was announcing who was involved initially, and when that logo came up with people like and the Sugar Bites guy and the guy who makes Utonic, it just felt really comfortable to me, a lot more comfortable than, normally in the past when people go, oh, your rival's this company or that company. I just felt like we kind of fitted quite nicely.
Well, that's kind of interesting. I mean, the whole thing is kind of based on a sort of app store paradigm, isn't it? It's encouraging developers to kind of basically, they can put it in the system and the system takes care of all the downloads and the accounting and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually quite elegant for smaller companies who can't, don't have to then spend ages and ages getting a storefront and back end and all of that kind of thing. It's all sort of tied in. So I'm guessing that's a pretty good just plus from the get-go, right?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of elements about this that really, we were kind of like, actually felt really honoured to have been asked as one of the initial people, and also as like, actually, we really, really want to do this.
And when do you think you're... well, no, this is a terrible question to ask Dave Spiers, isn't it? When's it going to be ready?
Well, I'm hoping this will kind of change the previous kind of baggage that we have. This will... I mean, like I said, what's being released initially, I've seen working and I've heard it working and it sounds pretty awesome. The main thing now is graphics. And I do know that said something like 5 hours to port an effect, but an instrument is a very different kettle of fish. And I can see that I could see it actually toing and froing for probably the next sort of 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing there's all sorts of solutions. You can tab things, and I suppose there's all sorts of stuff you can do because you've got a lot of controls to get into what is effectively a 19-inch paradigm, haven't you? Really?
Yeah, but we can finally do that tab button and flip it round and see things like CD game. Yeah. I mean, I loved that when that came out on Reason first of all, and we were like. When they came over, it was like, so when we press the tab button, do we get to see that?
Now, tell me, Dave, are you allowed to design the colour of your own patch cords? I
don't know, actually.
I think you should have a custom colour for the GeForce stuff.
Yeah, kind of based on Japanese art, I'd like.
Yeah, maybe so. So, now, who's excited about this? I mean, I know not all of us are avid Reason users, but... it's about time we got sort of plugin support. I mean, do you think this is maybe a kind of slippery slope once you start bringing third parties in? Is it going to affect stability and things? And Mark, do you use Reason at all? Is this something that would make you, if not, make you want to do it more so?
No, I don't really use Reason, so I don't know what to say about this topic actually. And would it make me want to use it more so? I think keeping up with all the things that I do use is hard enough, so I'm not sure that unless somebody specifically came to me and said I want to work in Reason and I was working with a client in Reason, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps it's more exciting perhaps to users that originally. I mean, no, in the chat room, Rob Pericelli, Failed Muso, is a big Reason sort of evangelist, and he's very, very bloody excited, he says. In fact, I think I've got it
Yeah, and he's going to be helping us, so
Just
that's
there.
cool.
So, what about you,
Cool.
Rich? I mean, do we need another plugin format? Do you think it's about time, or is this the only solution that really they could go for? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, from the standpoint of propeller heads, they're supporting a self-contained product base. And the fact that they have invited such esteemed producers of excellent music software products to go along with this is a great thing for both them and for those developers, including Dave. And I think this is a wonderful thing because everybody knows that everything doesn't last forever, and this might turn out to be the last man standing in the big time DAW world. Who knows? But if you're asking me what'll make me buy somebody's DAW, is show me a DAW that has built-in functionality that does session translation from Pro Tools straight away. It'll open your Pro Tools session into our DAW, put all your regions exactly where they go, put our plugins where their plugins went, and here, listen to this and see if you like it. That's the business that I might do. In other words, that's the business I'd look at. Is can I open my existing work base in some way into whatever it is, PreSonus's new thing, or Reason and Record. Reason and Record is a fantastic product. It's just I'm starting over, and if I'm doing that, I at least want to be able to open my existing work base. So, just on a very personal, selfish basis,
I don't think that's an unreasonable request, to be honest, but that's the sort of differentiator, isn't it? It's almost like the kind of the VHS versus Betamax argument, isn't it? It's kind of almost like that kind of built-in obsolescence, that makes you have to use that particular. If it was that easy, then I wonder what it would do to the actual. No,
it's a lot of freaking work. I expect there is a program SSL distributes that purports to do this, to take session format A from whatever your DAW of choice is and spit out session format B with your regions or whatever parts or whatever they're calling them this week, placed all in the right spaces and things all playing coherently and on the same timeline in your new piece of software.
Yes.
So
Really?
if somebody built that into, pardon me, Mark?
I said I'd like to see that work.
Well, so would I, and that's the point. So if, for example, Propellerheads wants to see me switching from my existing DAW base, build that in.
Right. I suspect that's probably not going to happen, not be on the top of the list of priorities. I
would think not, yeah.
But I mean, that's a fair point. I think that's a fair point. PJ, I mean, how do you feel about this? Is this going to be exciting, or is it, it's sort of another plugin format, I guess, but it makes it easier for developers. So I'm guessing what tends to happen with this sort of scenario is developers that have an easier path to publish might be tempted to kind of jump in at different levels and create funky stuff that you just can't find anywhere else. Kind of like the VST route, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. First of all and foremost, I'm really excited for Dave. I think this is great, and I'm excited for the Reason users that are not on another platform and that will now have access to software such as Dave's, because I really believe that Dave and Chris have a tremendous amount to offer that environment. As good as Reason is, as good as the synthesizers in Reason is, I can say hands down I prefer their software, the sound of their software to anything that's native inside of Reason, and I like Reason a lot, and I do use it. But the way that I tend to use Reason, generally speaking, is as a glorified drum machine.
Right.
So I'm using it to build occasionally, and less so now than I did at one point, to build grooves and things like that, and I'm either rewiring or exporting from Reason and bringing it back into Cubase or some other program, Ableton Live or something, to do post-production on it and incorporate it into a wider arrangement. This might change that. I think it sort of depends on what happens. I think the Reason environment is very unique and idiosyncratic, and there's a lot that could be done inside of that environment that, like you say, probably can't be done elsewhere. So it'll be really interesting to see what developers bring to the table and how they implement it into the existing workflow inside of Reason. And if that gets really, really interesting, then yeah, I'll definitely experiment with it and maybe occasionally use it or use it more often from the ground up for building arrangements, and then see how that goes and how I can implement that into my into my existing workflow. And for me, it always depends on what it is I'm doing. If I'm working on something personal, then I have the time, I'm a lot more tolerant of not having to do things like Rich was talking about, where you have a direct translation between DAWs or something. I'll work around that if I think an environment's interesting enough to work inside of. But if I'm working, on something for a client and speed is of the essence, then no, I tend to stay with what's easy and what I can do and achieve quickly. And for me, there's a couple of other considerations. One being my visual impairment, so I get pretty comfortable inside certain environments, and I try always to exercise my muscle and spread out, and expand the knowledge of the tools that I could use, potentially use.
Right.
But in a crunch, I use what I know and what I can use fast. So that's as I assume everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I mean, very, very well made. Actually, those things are very important. Yeah, sorry.
One very quick thing. I mean, from our perspective, it's quite interesting because I don't think that we've sold to any kind of Reason user. I don't think any of our instruments. We've never really kind of aimed at that market. And some of the attraction for us was obviously bringing what we do to what I see as a kind of entirely new audience. However, that kind of changed with, doing this judging of failed musos competition. What really fascinated me because I kind of grew up on the whole Rebirth thing, and what was really fascinating about judging that competition was the fact that there are so many songwriters out there using Reason,
right? Which
was really fascinating. I think sometimes it's seen as, like PJ was saying, a kind of glorified drum machine or a kind of loop vibey thing. But yeah, really fascinating.
Actually, one thing John Van Eaton says in the chat room that Pro Tools has just got to the point where you can use it on an airplane without an interface, but Reason has been there for well over a decade, and that actually is a very valid point in terms of the portable music market. So that I think you're right there. It's sort of a different, or certainly a different set of purposes and requirements for that particular application. I mean, I think people who use Reason probably do use other stuff as well, just because that's the nature of things. But that's an interesting point. But we shall see. I mean, I think they're talking about it being released in 6.5 in early summer, so I'm guessing April, May. So we'll look forward to seeing what that is like actually in situ, and whether it kind of changes anything, and whether the developer experience encourages more people to come on board, because as soon as some other people go, hey, it was great, we sold a bunch, it's easy, we got paid on time, those sort of things are going to encourage other people to join in. Anyway, I think at this point we should probably do our ad, because it's March, time has marched on a little bit, so I'm going to say thank you very much to Yamaha, our show sponsor. If I press the button, maybe it'll work. Doesn't say. There we are. They are basically, I want to tell you a little bit about the 01V96i. This is a compact digital mixing console from Yamaha. It's probably the smallest format one that they do in terms of 19-inch rack, but it's packed with features. It's got 16-in, 16-out USB 2 audio streaming, so that is pretty impressive just on its own. Refined studio quality head amps. These are the same that you find in the Steinberg interfaces that we've heard good things about in the past. A full suite of VCM effects, master strip, channel strip, vintage stomp effects, RevX reverb, 40 mixing channels, 8 16 analog and 8 digital inputs, 8 channel ADAT IO as standard, not using one of the extra YG-Day port, which you also have to expand if you want, 8 auxiliary and 8 mixing buses, 100mm motorized faders, 4 effects simultaneously. You get Steinberg Cubase AI included, advanced DAW support in terms of you can use it as a control surface for that, Studio Manager version 2, and Cascade Link. You can get a couple of them together, so impressive stuff there. If you're watching the video version, you can see that we've got a bit.ly URL, which is bit.ly/01v96i. That's bit.ly/01v96i. And we want to say thank you very much to Yamaha for their continued sponsorship of the show. Go check one out at a local dealer, a store near you. Right, this next one, this actually was, I'm sure there's other stuff that was really interesting. We'll hopefully get onto that, but this was the one that made me kind of go, ooh, this is really nice. So I'm just going to play it.
What?
What do we have here?
Okay, this is called the Sledge synthesizer. It's a brand new instrument from StudioLogic, and is born from a cooperation between StudioLogic and Waldorf. You know, the engine, the sound synthesis engine, is a Waldorf engine, and all the rest, the cabinet, the keyboard, the panel, and the main function are being designed by the StudioLogic lab.
Right, I'll stop there. This was the StudioLogic Waldorf collaboration, Sledge. I'd heard a bit about this, and for some reason it had completely passed me by, and I just walked past, and my head turned, literally, it was a double take. It's like, wow, what is that? And it was literally this big sort of, you know, almost warning orange stroke yellow school, it's like a US school bus colour. And it's just the Blofeld engine, and essentially it's like a MIDI controller for that particular instrument. And I have to say, I went back and I played with it on my own for a bit, and I just kind of tried to get some sounds out, and I've just thought it was fantastic. Massive control panel, lots of space between the knobs, you know, 3 oscillators, lots of functionality there, which is common to the engine. But the fact this thing's going to be under, I think he was talking about €900. I mean, it's not fantastically well built, but it's just great fun to use. And in some ways, Dave, it really kind of almost reiterates the fact that, you know, that hardware control for a dedicated soft instrument is just the way forward. It's just completely changed. You know, I'm sold. I want one already, and I want to get it in for review as soon as possible. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. Have you heard anything about this? I don't know whether the Blofeld. I haven't tried a Blofeld in its own, but that's a menu-driven thing. This just seems kind of brilliant.
I'm really glad you showed me this. Unfortunately, I've been so busy I didn't get a chance to check out any of the Messe videos apart from the Prepare Heads one. So I'm really pleased that this came through, because I worked with that guy a long time ago in Italy. Yeah, Gianni Giudici, who is a phenomenal musician and really, really musical. One thing I loved about that Italian company that I worked with on a consultancy basis I was on, they were all really, really passionate about audio and music, and there was kind of, you know, one side of the factory were real eggheads, and the other side of the factory were just totally interested in sort of music and everything to do. So I was kind of really, really pleased that this showed up and he was doing it. And I'd never heard of it before, but I reckon if he's anything to do with it, it's going to be pretty damn slick.
Well, I do hope so. I mean, it did actually really just come across like a MIDI controller bolted onto a chip which has the Waldorf engine on it. I mean, essentially, that's kind of what it is. I mean, I noticed that when you turn the knobs, you know, you have to pick it up through. I mean, maybe that's a revision, software revision thing. But I sort of didn't care. I mean, the fact that it was just all that.
I really prefer that. I've got this Andromeda here, and one of the knobs, you know, this is all continuous controllers, and one of the knobs is, in fact, it's the tuning knob, is constantly transmitting data. So no matter what I go to, this will always jump back and throw it out of tune. So that solution for me, same with the Imp2 controller, is much more elegant. And, you know, some people prefer the whole rotary controller things, but when things go wrong, it's a nightmare.
I don't know, Mark Tinley. I can see one of these just going really nicely in your house, on your kitchen table, making beautiful sounds together.
It looked brilliant. I loved the look of it, and it sounded pretty good as well. It just, I mean, I don't know why. I like my synths to look interesting, and anything brightly coloured with loads and loads of controls on it just kind of floats my boat. So. I mean, it gets my vote, definitely.
This thing could definitely have been an octave shorter and have a smaller front panel quite easily, because there's just so much space between all the controls. It reminded me a little bit of Minimoog kind of layout. I mean, 3 oscillators with the mixer in the bit, you know, and the switching and what have you. But just, it was so easy to program, and it was very quick to get you where you wanted to go. And to my sort of addled show brain, even though I've probably heard the Blofeld before, it seemed better because I was able to make the physical connection between it and the engine much more easily, and I really just like that. And there's also a button on it which just says panel, and you go out of program mode and you just do whatever you want on the front panel, which I like a lot.
I was thinking about something last night on the train on the way back from London. And I've got a friend who's completely blind, so he can't really see anything at all. I mean, he can notice when it's light or dark, and that's about it. And I was thinking about iPhones, and I know that he uses an iPod Touch, and I was thinking there's something in And we get used to these form factor things very quickly because we're sighted, but there's something in the form factor of a unit. And when you've played around with something for a little while, you kind of get to know where everything is, and then it becomes a very intuitive process. And I think, like the computers definitely take us away from that intuitive process. Having to go one by one with the mouse on the screen just takes something away from that visceral kind of sensual kind of effect of being able to grab a whole load of controls and know how they're going to change stuff. And it's sort of, and really the blind part of that was when they upgrade the iPhone from the 3 to the 4 and then the 5, I guess the form factor's going to change and he won't be able to feel his way around it. But, I mean, we learn things quite quickly because we can see them, but I still think that there's something about kinesthetic and sensory things that's really important in the making of music. And even though it's sound, it's still really important to have that sensual contact with things.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm guessing, PJ, this is probably something that you would probably agree with, being that your sight is not you're not fully sighted. I mean, would this be something that would be kind of right up your street? I mean, I guess you'd have to make space for it in your studio, but I would thoroughly recommend that you did because it's fantastic.
Yeah. We'll kind of work into this backwards, but along with Mark, what he said initially, I really love the look of it, and I think it would look really cool next to my Nord piano, which is bright red, and the other synthesizers that I have in the studio. But I agree entirely with what Mark's saying, and I know we've touched on this before, but that first and foremost, ergonomics, and secondly, the haptic experience, which is the sense of touch, is really, really important to me, and I'm beginning to realize how much so lately, since we've been putting together a studio with a lot of analog outboard gear, and I haven't worked in that environment in a really long time, personally. I've gone into other studios to do projects. Generally, there's another engineer working, and I'm either producing or a part of something larger. But sitting down in front of a lot of outboard gear and twiddling knobs and affecting audio in real time doing that, there's just something that makes my heart sing, while engaging in that experience. And the same is true of synthesizers. It's just so much more gratifying when you can grab a knob and twist that knob and hear a filter sweep in real time, or it's just so much more immediate. And I agree with Mark, from a purely logistical standpoint, it's easier for me if there's physical controllers. Mousing around a screen is certainly not as easy, although I've become used to it and rely on it daily. So I agree with all
the other
those
thing
things.
that's interesting about this, I think, is that perhaps it's going to be I want to know whether it actually outputs MIDI controls, so that, I mean, essentially you've got all the controls you're probably going to want to need for a large synthesizer that you can map to anything you want, and you kind of, there it is, you've got a MIDI controller that will do that job. I mean, admittedly, it's not going to be of the quality of the Imposca controller, but it's still, and it's got a synth. I don't know, Rich, you were tempted to take the devil's advocate position in the chat room. Now I'm just wondering whether you've decided to or not.
No, I'm joking. Completely joking. It's just that everybody has now waxed so eloquently on the joys of twiddling knobs. Dave made an absolute elegy to the thing as a promotional video for the Imp 2 controller, and Mark practically paraphrased him word for word a little while ago, and now PJ's weighed in. So yeah, I love knobs. But getting back to this yellow thing that Fatar is making with Waldorf, it sounded okay to me, but somehow not great. And all I was thinking while I was listening to it is, I told them to put the sound in the controller, the Imp 2 controller. Because to me, I'd rather have the Imp 2 sound and the Imp 2 controller with or without a keyboard attached than that thing any day of the week. And I had this, when I started talking about it, I had this vision that these kinds of physical controllers make all the sense in the world to run really good software or digitally based synth engines like this Waldorf thing, or like Dave's software, the Imp 2. But they need to make their own sound too, so people can just drag the thing to a gig and play it.
It has to be, well, it was sort of.
You'll recall that, Dave. I made that. You may have been part of that conversation, but I was pretty just as vigorous then as I am now about it. I really do think that's the future. When you've got a really great software instrument, if you can stick it in a box like that thing back there and have it spit out that sound all by itself without having to have this thing in front of me, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's a card option, even if it's an upgrade option where you put it on a $500 card and you stick it into a slot somewhere.
Yeah, would it run on Raspberry Pi? That'd be an interesting concept. I wonder if it would. Well, isn't that what Urs Heckman's doing? We went to see Yuhi stand, and he's got like a Diva. He's working on a controller with it built in. But I mean, I'm guessing the problem is with that principle is, to get the scale of economy to put the thing inside, you're having to kind of build these little tiny computers that are optimized for real-time audio processing, work, which are kind of by their very nature rather high-end. So that makes one hell of an expensive component, I suppose.
It's like the Arturia Origin. The
other problem, though, is it has to support everything, because you really can't make any money supporting one guy's thing.
Well, yeah. But then you get back to the problem of, yeah, but mine's an FM synthesizer. This subtractive control.
No. It would have to follow a certain form factor that was appropriate. Either that, or it would have to update the labeling on every single knob on the front panel for everything it was recalling, which is like what Lucasfilm's Edit Droid did in the late '80s.
Yeah. Wow. Nobody's
going to do that. That's expensive, and Novation tried, and it kind of sucks, if I do say so myself.
You do say so yourself, yes.
But, so, because I tried to buy into that. I thought, well, look at that. Somebody's finally done it. And then I watched them do it, and it was like, it's not really right.
Well, it's interesting, actually, that you say that, because I did also see the Copperland guys, and they did rather interesting. They had like a kind of just a simple controller. I was going to dig the video out, and they modified just this basic controller. They put a screen on it and a Copperland input, and it just, any plugin that just, could say, here's a control, I connect to this instance of this synthesizer on that laptop over there, or running on wherever it may be, and send me 8 knobs to play with. That means these knobs are all going to be mapped to those, and it's just, they're all labeled, and it just seemed really, really obvious, which is kind of like Automap, but actually one step removed. All the plugin has to do is answer a question. What have you got for me? And here they come. And that seemed very straightforward, really. And but again, the problem with the Copperland guys is, like, we're making all these fantastic ideas, but they're not actually, they're sort of, they have to be agnostic, because they're trying to sell the technology, not the devices. If they start making devices, then they go into competition with the people that they're trying to sell Copperland to. So it's a really difficult situation for them. But
let's stick with MIDI. It's worked for 30 years. I mean, come on.
Well, it is essentially MIDI. But yeah, I mean, I feel we're getting closer to this. I suppose the thing about the Sledge is it just makes all of us realise that that's ultimately what we really want. We've been around the houses, we've had everything. I mean, but the thing about having this stuff on a computer is great, because we can have a computer can be many, many things. A synthesizer that is essentially a Sledge or a Waldorf Blofeld or whatever that's what it is. So it's not going to be anything else. So the cost per unit is getting pricey. But yeah, I've just got really excited about it, and I can't wait to get hold of it, because I can't wait to wax more lyrically about the control surface and the way that works. And I just, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know when exactly it's going to be available, but it did seem like there was perhaps still a bit of work to go on some of those. Like, it wasn't loading all the wavetable, what have you. But great idea.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anybody know how well the Arturia Origin sells? Because this was sort of one of the first of those types of products, wasn't it, where they took existing engines that they had and put them in a hardware box that had dedicated control. But it's expensive. It's not a cheap synthesizer. It's $3,000 or something in the US.
Yeah.
For one of those. Yeah. And
you got to like those engines a real lot to want to spend that much money on that controller.
Now I'm not saying, Rich, whether or not it's a good synthesizer, or it's something that you or I would buy, but it's that idea incarnate. So, for those that like the Arteria software, are they selling those things off the shelves? I mean, is that paradigm
I don't think
working?
I don't think. Well, by the very nature, it's a very expensive synthesizer, so it's not going to be selling a lot. But the thing is about this Sledge is it's like a third of the price, and it's got all this other stuff built. I mean, it's about the interface. That's what I was saying. I mean, to my opinion, it sounded okay, but I think it sounded better because I was able to control it so easily. Do you see what I mean? So it was more of an instrument because I was able to interact with it in real time much more effectively and I want to sound like this and make the sound. Whereas to do it via a menu and submenu driven system is not at all the same process at all, to my mind. But anyway, as we know, it's a perennial discussion about how the perfect controller and the perfect interface. But it feels like we're getting closer. And in effect, the Sledge is really just a kind of an iteration of that argument and a sort of demonstration of the fact that is indeed the case. We want to get back to an instrument that you can actually get hands on, or at least there is a market for it. Maybe it's just us getting excited about it. Maybe
I'm so pleased we're having this discussion. I bought my wife, not me, of course. I bought my wife for her iPad. No, an IMS-20, and controlling that on the iPad for me is just like, it really is kind of like wallpapering through a letterbox. It's better than actually menu-driven things, but it's still, this idea of touching things with your fingertips as opposed to grabbing things and twisting them is very strange for me.
Yeah, it's not quite there yet, is it? I mean, that's the thing. But hopefully this is going to be a step closer. Maybe StudioLogic are going to come out with a whole bunch of things. Maybe they will have. Maybe the hardware they've put inside has some sort of potential to, to be other instruments as well. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I just wanted to put that in because I really enjoyed it. There was another. What do we want to look at next? Because I think we've probably got to do the dereverbinator because that is fairly major. Do you not think? And I know that Mark and PJ were both excited about this. We can look at maybe some of the studio. What are we talking about? We could do, or do you want to, Rich? Does the 500 modules have an interest to you?
It's all interesting to me. So go with your gut.
Oh, I don't know. Come on, I need some input. I can't make any decisions.
I got very excited by the ribbon synth, but I'm sure that would be a huge sideways kind of.
I haven't got that prepared. I'm afraid. Yeah, that one that looked a bit like a large bass cannon. Yes, that was kind of interesting.
Or a Great British Spring Reverb.
Yeah. Well, all right. I tell you what. Let's just let's do the Zynaptic thing, just purely because. And then if we've got some extra time, we could do one of the other topics. So I'll just fire that in now.
I'm Dennis, I'm the CEO of Zynaptic. We're a freshly baked audio software company and we do stuff based on artificial intelligence technology and perceptive modeling and other high-tech strategies. We just launched a new product here at the Musik Messe. It's called Unveil, which is a real-time de-reverberation and signal focusing processor, which allows you to attenuate or boost reverb and other background components in a mixed signal on signals going from mono to 7.1.
Right, I'm going to fast forward here. Right, so here's the signal.
Libraries. As you can hear, lots of reverb as it's a film mix, and now we'll take that reverb off there.
Right, I'll stop there because it's quite a long demonstration, but I mean, we were joking about this, and I've been in contact with the chap there who is actually going to film me a demonstration and a screen capture and a voiceover and stuff to show me a bit so we got some high fidelity examples of this. Hopefully we'll be able to post that when I go back from holiday, which is next week. But the first thing I said was, you have no idea, because we were looking. In fact, PJ did actually ask for a convolution de-reverbinator, and PJ, it looks like that you have it there. So this must be a very happy day for you. Surely you're going to buy this. It's like $269 special offer going up to $399. But it looks like, I mean, it'd be really useful for us. Just take rooms off interviews, all that kind of thing. It's probably better for dialogue and those things than perhaps for full stereo mixes like that. But a dramatic example, no?
Yeah, that's a really cool device. previous to this software I've been using for doing this kind of thing when I've needed to, SPL's Dverb, which is pretty good, for what it can do, but it can't do that, and I find that fascinating. A really, really cool sound design tool. Definitely great for production audio, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think from what I could hear, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch that video.
I recommend it. I mean, the thing is,
I saw the video, but I didn't get to listen through good monitor speakers to see, what was really happening with like the high end and all of that and that audio. Does it sound? You think it sounds very natural?
Well, I couldn't really tell from that example either because it was a noisy background, but it sounded like there were some artifacts there. But that was a full mix with kind of full orchestral mix. So I'd imagine perhaps that was a sort of dramatic example. He used there's a dialogue example later on where it worked just as well. And the idea, if you film somebody maybe talking in an echoey corridor, just as for us from a video production point of view, it could fix an awful lot of things potentially. And he says, it's great for that. It's great for, and you can enhance the reverb as well. So you can bring the wet mix up if you like, or just take the dry out completely. I mean, I have no idea how they do it. I mean, it must be some sort of fairly clever DSP stuff going on under the hood, but it just looks like such a useful, in the same way that the Isotope RX things are just, you've got to have that. In the same way that Melodyne, you've got to have that for certain things. This looks like one of those, you must have this kind of plugins.
Yeah, it was making me, that's what made me think about it, is I watched that video this morning, and last night, actually, until the wee hours of the night, I was taking production audio and running it through Isotope RX and cleaning noise out of it and that kind of thing, and just thinking what a fantastically magical tool Isotope RX is. It's like Photoshop for audio. It's unreal what that piece of software can do. And this seems like it's
holy shit.
What's going on there?
A hailstorm.
Hailstorm in they want to know in the chat room what it's called, and it's called Zynaptic Unveil. There it is, and you can try it it's Mac audio units only. It looks like it's Mac only, I'm afraid, so that's a bit of a downer for some of our PC friends, but maybe it's coming. But hopefully I'll be able to talk to the chap whose product it is in the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to remember what his name was now because I've got him here. He's called Dennis or Denis, based in Germany. Mark's vanished. I was going to go to Mark next. He's hung up, or maybe he's just lost his. Let me see if I can get him again. Right, let's try. Come back, Mark. My layout's gone. Now it's all gone like this. Oh no! That means all my switching's going to be ruined. Right, let's see if we can get in touch with Call. Yeah, let's see if we can get him back. I'll go back to me. But yeah, mind-blowing stuff. I mean, Rich, you know, there's got to be situations like this where, I mean, I wonder what it would look like on a roomy drum kit. You know, you can take it all back. I mean, astonishingly useful, would you not think?
I do think. And kind of piggybacking on what PJ was just saying and the overall sort of concept of this, what's incredible to me is the kinds of analysis that have become sort of de rigueur over the last 5 to 7 to 8 years. And now they're applying them in real-time processes, because these guys have another one they showed that changes pitch of entire pieces of music in real time based on MIDI input. And that is just the kinds of analysis that go into being able to separate things like that, either with respect to pitch or in this case with respect to dry and ambient, perceivably dry and ambient. That's pretty amazing stuff to me. And yeah, very useful. And really just the whole picture has changed. I think PJ was alluding to this, like in terms of what's possible because of these kinds of analysis and some of those tools that we've discussed previously, where in a rectangular world you get color blobs that represent audio in different parts of the stereo spectrum, and you can like highlight one and drag it around or take it out, or you know, make the vocal go away, or I mean, all of this kind of analysis that's come up in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, it's just remarkable to me.
So I'm having trouble. I'm chasing Mark around the screen because when I call him, I'll demonstrate. When I call Mark, what happens here is it goes back to the 2-shot, but when it doesn't hang up, when he doesn't get there, it goes to a 3-shot, which messes up all my my shots. So I'll just go back to me for the time being. I think this is astonishing. This is another one of those Melodyne moments, I think. Mark, I was going to come to you next because I know that you, when I sent this out, you just said, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" And I'm guessing that you must have something to say on the subject.
Well, it's kind of weird because I was driving my son to school and I was thinking about convolution reverbs and I was thinking about the amount of computing power it takes. Yeah, I know it's weird, but
It sounds funny.
but I was thinking about the amount of computing power it takes to put reverb onto things, and I thought surely we've got to the point with technology that we must have the amount of computing power to take stuff off. And I was the reason I was thinking about convolution reverbs was probably because I was recording some spoken word thing in the car, and I thought everything I record in the car always has this kind of glassy, close ambience. And wouldn't it be nice if I could take it off? So I thought if I had like an impulse response in the car and measured the car's reverb, I could then remove it from the car. And then I thought that would totally negate the need for any kind of studio environment or like dead room environment ever, wouldn't it? Because if you could literally take any reverb, anti-room, and then the next day this came on and I was like, oh my God, I think Rich told me about it, didn't you, Rich? And then I said that was a very strange kind of what is it called, coincidence or serendipitous
synergy
moment.
Yes.
By having watched the video, I mean, that is just, I mean, I know it doesn't necessarily take a specific room off a recording, but the fact that it can just take the reverb off like that, I mean, the uses for that are just mind-boggling, really, aren't they? Because
they are. I mean, he's pretty switched on already. I mean, in the video, he does actually suggest that you could use it for 5.1 mixes. You could change the reverb mix based on what camera you're switching to. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do with it, and that's kind of cool. So I mean, he's obviously got a nod to that kind of mark, and that's where you could see it being really useful.
May I mention? Oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to mention Mark, just so that you know that at least in the example that he's using with that orchestral library, I own that library. It's Project Sam Symphobia, and the recording itself is done in a hall, so it's not an artificial reverb that's placed over top of the recording that's being removed.
Because there's another thing that happened as well, actually. So when I was on the train on the way back from London last night, I had a friend over on Saturday who does sound massages, and he put all these singing bowls on me and hit them. And I sat in this kind of big, gongs and all that kind of stuff, man. And I put my binaural microphones in and I recorded the whole thing. So I was checking that recording. So I was sitting on the train in King's Cross Station waiting for the train to go out. I had about 30 minutes and it was quite quiet. But what I noticed is that the real sounds around me, so the sounds of people moving and the sounds of stuff squeaking in the background and trains creaking and everything, all sounded horribly unnatural. And that's because my brain had acclimatized itself to the natural reverb of the room I recorded the singing bowls in. So what I suddenly realized from that is that when you start trying to put different reverbs into the same space, it all starts to sound horribly wrong.
Right.
So if you've got some natural reverb on a recording and you're trying to mix that with something else, or if you've even got an old recording and you need to get the reverb off that and you want to add new instruments to it, there's always a slight kind of offness about things, like they don't quite belong in the same space. And this could be a key to being, if you could remove the reverb from everything and then start with a fresh kind of overall reverb for all your different bits and pieces, you could make much more natural sounding mixes if you're starting with a completely blank canvas. So I'm really excited by it.
It does sound very interesting. I think, Rich, you've just got the show title there with the anechoic massage. In the chat room, I think that's a great title for the show.
Thank you very much.
So nicely done. I just think this is very exciting. You can get it now. I mean, unfortunately, it's only available for Mac by the looks of things, but it's on special offer. It's like $130 off. I am certainly going to take a look at that because it really does I mean, like I said, even just for video production, fantastic. You know, if we've got audio that's just somehow wrong, or I can imagine, you know, if we've got a close mic recording and we've got a safety in the camera that's all roomy, take the room off. You know, there we've got. It's like we can fix anything almost. That's amazing. I mean, that really is kind of quite useful, I think. And also the other, just to add again, I mean, like for instance, I've just done a recording. I've just edited the Yamaha THR, which I've gone on about, amp, which you've got in the background. Sounds great. I've mic'd up with a pair of ribbons, and it sounds fantastic. I mean, but when I tend to close mic things, you know, I'm missing some of the other stuff. So I want to use a little bit of the mic that comes in on the lav mic from the person that that's doing the dialogue as well. So I could see myself just taking the reverb signal only of that and adding that to the mix if it ran on PC, because all my editing's done on PC. But I could see all sorts of uses just for that, you know, just on those bases. But video production, it really does make sense. I mean, there's it's going to be very interesting, I think.
Facilities houses will just go gaga over it, wouldn't they?
Well, the thing that was quite exciting about this also, I mean, because I tried to get a demo. Honestly, I went back to the stand like 5 or 6 times, and he was always busy, all in the middle. And I left a card, and he contacted me as soon as he could. Sadly, we'd left Messe by the time that I was available, that he was available. But you know, he's going to do something else, so we're going to definitely do something with him, and we'll be interested to see, you know, in the confines of a kind of decent screen recording with decent audio, what it really is capable of.
Brilliant.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, something like this is amazing. Mark brought up a really good use for it, and that's, you know, mashup artists and sampleists. You know, people that make music from existing pieces of Foley and found sounds and recordings. This will open up a whole new world for them. I mean, this is really cool if it works well across a wide spectrum of audio, and for video production, this is a dream. I could see Audio Ease, you know, coming up with a product like this and wanting to pair them together. You know, saying first take all the crappy reverb off of your production audio and then put Altiverb on it, you know. So
licensing the I'm sure that's feasible. I mean, I didn't looking at that demo, I don't know whether that had to be prepared or whether that was real time or whether it would be analyzed, and then, you know, I don't know. All of these things are questions that I'm hoping we'll be able to answer. I mean, it'd be really cool if it was a fully real time experience. That would be really impressive, but I don't know the answers to any of these things yet. Right, let's see. We probably have got time for a quick blast of actually, this was something that I was interested in, the minus 30 dB speaker isolation booth, because I was thinking about getting one of these, but I'd never seen one so effective. I'm just going to play it because I think I was impressed, and I think you would not fail to be impressed as well. So I think this is it.
Okay, hi, my name is Stefan Grossmann. I'm the producer of this box. It's an isolation cabinet for guitar recordings, and it reduces the volume in 30 dBs. And I'll show you.
Watch your ears.
This is the sound outside the box, and now I will lift it up. It's very loud, I think. Also,
it is very loud. I just thought that was absolutely, totally cool. And it's got these little kind of mounting points in that you can put various mics in. You can change the speakers, so you could put a greenback or a Celestian Gold or all of that, or Vintage 30, whatever. And it just seemed, and I was listening later on in the video, you can hear the difference between the 57 and the Audio-Technica large diaphragm. And I just thought it was fantastic. And I don't know whether or not anybody, you know, because obviously as big studios, purpose-built studios are becoming less of an obvious option these days. This is the sort of thing that you could put under the stairs in your flat and it wouldn't annoy the neighbours too much. But I don't know what the characteristics of recording from sort of inside such a small box are. Perhaps, Rich, you might have some knowledge of how it could work, or whether this sort of thing can work, or whether you just prefer to mic the whole thing up. There you go.
I think it can work. I think it can work. It sounded like it worked. It seems like a rather mechanical solution to most people's project studio problems, given that the alternative is to use models that weigh, 3 pounds and cost a couple of $100. So when you're weighing things on the scales of justice, you really have to believe in that amp sound to want to go through the trouble of lifting this thing, spending $750 to $800 by the time you're done on all the attachments and the speakers and everything else you need to make it work, and putting it under the stairs. You know, like, in other words, yeah, it works great, but is it a practical product? I guess there is probably some percentage of folks who would spend that much money for something that large and heavy to address that problem.
Well, I guess if you're in a recording studio, you can bring, or where different guitarists come in, you can plug that speaker in as opposed to the one that's in the combo, or so people can use the amps that they know and love and just drive it. I mean, he was driving it with some kind of monster Mesa Boogie triple rectifier thing, and I'm guessing, but
it sounded great.
It did.
I mean, I had no quibble with the way it sounded, and as he was bringing up the different microphones, it was appropriately, it was doing
appropriately different.
Yeah, it's doing all the things you want it to do. It's just like a really large, bulky, expensive, and heavy solution to a problem that can also be addressed, albeit perhaps a little less romantically, with a $200 modeling device that weighs nothing. So it's a choice that some people will make, and I can respect it because it does sound good.
Well, I guess the thing is, I'm a sucker. I must be a bit of a sucker for the sort of fairground sideshow kind of demonstrations, because it was so completely obvious. You just that kind of before, after was like, whoa, that's really serious. I know. Has anyone got a use for this kind of thing? I mean, PJ, you're setting up a studio. I guess you probably don't, because you'll just make the noise you need to make when you need to make it, right?
Yeah, but I do know somebody that would love this, and for the reasons that Rich sort of alludes to, he will not use any sort of modeling software or modeling box, with his rig, because he's just that guy. He's so specific about what he wants to hear and doesn't believe he can hear it through the modeling software or the modeling boxes. So something like this in his home rig, I think would be perfect. And so I'm definitely going to point him in this direction and say, hey, if you're demoing things at home or, making your own tunes on your computer, this might be something you want to check out. So I think there's definitely a market out there, albeit it's probably pretty small.
Yeah, it is. Well, according to the, looking in the chat room, there's a few people who are kind of saying, yeah, this would be really cool. So, I mean, maybe, maybe doesn't need to sell that many, but it was just the what about you, Dave? You could always put like a full range speaker in it and stick your synth through it, could you? Or would it be a bit waste of time?
No.
I'm just trying to be inclusive here.
No, I'm with PJ completely. I know various guitarists who just won't use anything other than old school amps and wouldn't touch any modelling software. And they'd probably love this, actually. And I thought the price was pretty damn good.
Yeah. I think it was about €400. I mean, the box itself, it looks like it's got this kind of that window tape all around. So when you put it down, it's got a really perfect fit. And he said he'd done a lot of work on the inside of the cabinet that was sort of had a lot of extra density there. So the boxiness of it was much less pronounced. But, as he said, it is a box. So it's going to sound a bit like a box because it is one. So, that's just the way it goes. And then you could always add reverb or take even more reverb off it with your unreverberator if you need to as well, I suppose.
A lot of people mic you're doing it, Nick. So a lot of people mic a guitar by sticking the mic, right up against the grill cloth. So you're not getting really any sound of the environment around the microphone anyway. Unless you are intentionally, doing it where you're putting the amplifier in a larger space and sticking microphones a little further back. This is a perfect solution for sticking a 57 up against a grill.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think can I say something?
Of course you can.
I think guitar modelling is good up until a point. So it's brilliant for like home recording. I'm not the best guitarist in the world, but I can play a bit, and I kind of get by with it. But the difference with an amp is that you've got another dimension in terms of like the way the amp responds to different velocity input. And that just doesn't happen in modeling, not in the same way. So you can make a guitar sing in the dimension of kind of volume up and down through an amp in a way that you can't do with modeling. and it's like a leverage thing. So again, it's like a sensory and a kinesthetic thing. When you bend a string, it's literally being amplified from like a small movement to like big movement of the speaker. And then when you strap the speaker like into a 4x12 Marshall cabinet, the fact that it's stuck in an enclosed space means that the speaker does something else. It gets kind of damped in that environment.
Yeah.
So there's, you punch a good chord out on a guitar when it's turned up loud, you can see the speaker jump, and then you see the damping come into effect. And that has a sort of a sound to it in that it moves air. And guitar modeling doesn't move air. And if this thing can actually get the sense of air moving and get that into a recording, then I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. I mean, I would like to, on the plus side, say that you really should check out a Yamaha THR. I know I've been banging on about it, but everybody who hears it just goes, wow. And that does respond to your dynamic playing in terms of voicing as well as just, volume. It is actually very responsive, and sort of surprisingly so, and the fact that it's a sort of tiny little thing about the size of a kind of shoebox is even more astonishing. But if you get a chance, try one out. I know they're not Yamaha Guitar Department and not sponsoring the show, but I can honestly thoroughly recommend that they try it, that you do try it out. The THR review might be able to get a chance to review it tomorrow, actually, to publish it tomorrow, certainly Friday perhaps, if they get back to me with the fact check.
Hey Nick.
Yes.
Have you had a chance to look at the Kemper profiling amp?
I've not, but we have been offered one to come into review quite soon, so I'm going to hopefully get one in. It's supposed to be very good, but that doesn't actually make any noise. That doesn't shift any air. It hasn't got, at least the last iteration, it's like a preamp, effectively, as far as I understand. But lots of people are really raving about it, as far as I understand.
Yep.
But we hope to get it in and have it in our amped guitar channel. Incidentally, I talked to Isotope guys while I was at Messe, and they said, you should really check out this Nectar plugin, which is a voiceover plugin. And I'm so this you're not hearing it now if you're listening live, but on the edited version you will be hearing it. So I'll be interested to know what people think about it. Just I'm going to try it instead of I can't remember the plugin that I was using before, Mix. I forget now, but I'll try and mention it in the show notes. But so if you've been listening this week, you've been listening to the sound of Nectar. Let's see how it sounds. And I also wanted to say, obviously, I've got the Jupiter 80 here on a guitar sound, which is probably not appropriate. Let me see if I can get that. I'd have to dig the patch out, but and I'm going to be checking out the version 2 OS. But actually, this week is the last week. Again, we've come back from Messe, but I've got to go. Not got to, but I am going on holiday next week, so I won't be here for a show. But the week after, we will be. When we get back, we're going to go up to the Gadget Show in Birmingham, and hopefully there's actually quite a lot of musical people up there, so we should come back with some yet more show videos. But if you haven't already seen the show videos, you want to go to sonicstake.com/news, and there's links there to all our Messe videos and various other bits and pieces. So please do check it out. But that's kind of about it for this week, because I'm now going to get on my new bike and cycle home, save on the petrol. So I want to say thank you very much to all my participants. First of all, we've got Dave Spiers there from GeForceSoftware.com. There you go. There's the
thank you very
lower
much.
third. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. And now we've got Mark Tinley from likebeing.com. Thanks to you for joining us there as well, Mark.
Thank you very much. Much enjoyed.
Good. And we've got Rich Hilton, who's there in, I think the hailstorm has finished, but I think maybe the guitar storm might be about to start. There he goes. You're listening. That's just, what was that again? Is it an Epiphone? What was it? An Epiphone?
Epiphone Blues Custom 30.
That's right. It's all brand new. It does sound nice. And that presumably responds very well to your input because it's got valves in it and stuff.
7 tubes in this bad boy. It's wonderful. It's glorious. And I'm running it as a 15-watt Class A amp, and it sounds gorgeous like that.
Excellent. Oh, well, it does sound nice. Even over Skype. So thank you very much for joining us, Rich. Always a pleasure to have you aboard. And now we'll go over to PJ Tracy, pjtracysound.com. Thank you very much for joining us, PJ. Hope your studio floor gets sorted out and you can get in there and start working. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and it really nice to hear that amplifier, Rich. I really like the reverb.
Yeah, it does sound good, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
it sounds great.
That is basically it for this week. So remember, no show next week, but there will be a show the week after. And if you've been listening, thank you very much. And remember, you're listening to the sound of Nectar. Tell me what you think of it. See if it improves our fidelity, makes us sound more radio or whatever. And also, I want to say thank you very much to the show sponsors, Yamaha, and do check out the O1V96i. It really is an action-packed, small format digital console. So once again, thank you very much for listening. That's it. It's a wrap.
Yay!